Alrighty, and we are live. How's it going, Rangers and overall hockey fans? Thank you guys all so much for chiming in. As I'm Wardy, that is Steven at statboy_Steven on Twitter, the biggest stats guru you'll ever meet, covering the Rangers on a daily basis over social media. Of course, you guys know me here, Wardy on Wardy NYM, covering the Mets as my main thing, and here. Oh, my bad, that's on me, not you. I had the link open through YouTube there. My mistake. I was hearing it come through the mic. But yeah, you guys know me on YouTube covering the Mets, but also here covering the Rangers because we are diehard fans and we are beyond ecstatic to break down the official series preview between the Rangers and the New Jersey Devils. The first time these teams are matching up in playoffs since, of course, 2012 when Adam Henrique happened. We're not going to talk about that anymore. That was my introduction into Rangers fandom, watching every single game of that 2012 season just for my heart to be broken. And here we are now today, a decade plus later, and these teams are matching up once again. Steven, we have a lot to get into on just sharing our raw thoughts on this matchup between these two rivals here in the East. And more than anything, how are they matching up toe-to-toe? What's favoring the Devils? What's favoring the Rangers? What will be the biggest X factors potentially for both teams in this matchup? And ultimately, what are going to be our predictions, if at all, without trying to jinx things too much? A lot again to appreciate everyone watching live in our replay. Thank you guys so much for being in here. But Steven, NHL playoff hockey is back. I know you're excited.
Yeah, this is the time of year that matters. So 82 games behind us, and now we're up against the Devils. I don't really know what to expect from the Devils. Playoffs is always different than regular season. We talk about it all the time. And for a lot of their players, it's going to be their first taste of NHL playoff hockey. So we'll see how they do. But in the regular season, the Devils had a great year. Finishing second in the Metro. I don't think anyone expected that at the start of the season.
No, they surprised us all.
5 points ahead of the Rangers. 2 more regulation wins than the Rangers. The Devils have home ice advantage for a reason, and yeah, it's going to be a dangerous team to go up against. The power play for the Rangers has the advantage there, 24.1% compared to 21.9 for them. Their penalty kill is slightly better, 82.6 versus 81.2. But they're pretty evenly matched. If you look at goals for, goals against, yeah, there are some differences there. The Devils scored more goals, but also conceded more goals. But overall, these teams are very well matched. And I think the biggest challenge for the Rangers will be the style that the Devils play. The Devils are one of the best teams in transition in the league. And the Rangers have struggled with that when they meet them in the playoffs. In the regular season. So the Rangers need to make sure that they, that they protect the middle of the ice. They need to make sure that if they're going to hit someone, that the hit lands, because the last thing you want is to take yourself out of position against this team that's so good off the rush. But yeah, like I said, the experience for New Jersey isn't really there. The Rangers only have 3 players on the team that have never played in in a conference final. Every other player has. So the experience from last year will definitely help the Rangers there.
Yes, you would imagine, right? And you look at this Devils season and what they had. A lot of similarities to the Rangers last year in the sense of the Rangers finally got out of the rebuild. I'm saying finally, even though that it really was a fairly quick, ritual in comparison to what we normally see. And you emphasize the Canes, the Blackhawks, etc. from years past and how the Rangers sped up that process. But Rangers really came out guns a-blazing last year and surprised many, but had a deep run. And now the Devils, they're looking to basically do that exact same thing. They have the young kids. They have a lot of speed on that team, too. A lot of players that I genuinely like, so I hate the fact that they're Devils. Like, when Dawson Mercer was first drafted, I was like, son of a gun. That's a great pick. Jack Hughes, we obviously knew was going to be a great pick from the get-go, and we're not going to do this Kakko-Hughes debate because we know which one is better than the other. And 2, it's not like the Rangers had a shot at Hughes and said, we're going to go with Kakko instead. No, they were going to go with whatever the Devils didn't take there, right? So you look at Hughes, you look at Mercer, you look at just that young core group. I mean, Jesper Bratt had another very solid season for them. Defensively, Dougie Hamilton leading leading the way on the offensive production. They have some nice young pieces behind there. Siegenthaler, who continues to be a very solid, defenseman when he was acquired a couple years ago from the Capitals. They have a very nice youth movement going on, and it's frustrating seeing how fast that we've seen this Devils team really come up. But again, they've had top picks for the last number of years now, and now these guys are really starting to blossom. Nico Hischier, their captain, we know what to expect from him, a very solid two-way player. So they have pieces. There is no denying that whatsoever. And this matchup will not be easy, especially after they acquired Timo Meier, who we would have loved to have, but we knew how much it was going to cost to land him. Instead, however, the Rangers did acquire guys by the name of Vladimir Tarasenko, Patrick Kane, both who have championship pedigree on their belt, and they will be using that pedigree heading into this round one matchup. This is a Rangers team that we saw, again, had a deep playoff run. We saw the kids and Hedel and Laffy and Kakko all blossom, and they were on full-fledged for the majority of the season. Such a balanced, beautiful line that they had, driven and led by Philip Hedel that we saw this season. And now we hope to see more magic from the kids this year, as we do to see from the vets, and making sure that these guys step up, making sure that Kane, Tarasenko, the new guys on the block, do what we expect them to do. It's going to be this is a pretty even matchup when you look at the numbers overall between these two teams. And yes, the Raiders are an older team. They have more savvy vets on their squad, so hopefully this will come to play in their favor in this matchup. But to your point, Steven, yes, that transition game does have me a little worrisome. Absolutely. I mean, the Devils were so fantastic throughout the year in that regard. And, this Ranger team still finished here with over 100 points, a very solid season on their front. We haven't spoke over the last couple of weeks because, especially my hectic schedule per usual. But, you saw the Rangers season, how it ended on a strong note for the most part. And now they're heading into postseason here against a young, hungry Devils squad. And as we look toe-to-toe between these two teams, especially, Steven, what stands out to you when you look at their respective numbers from the regular season? And might I add, I understand that regular season numbers only mean so much. It doesn't mean that's necessarily going to translate into playoff production. However, it is something to be said on how to evaluate this team to a degree as they're heading into round one.
Yeah, the numbers, I just went over them. They're very close in terms of goals scored, goals against. I think these teams are very evenly matched, and they have some experience on the team with Thomas Tatar, Andre Palat, and Timo Meier, and of course Dougie Hamilton on defense. I think for the Rangers, the upper hand for them will be the bottom six. I think having the kit line as your third line, and then that fourth line with Vesey, Goudreau, and Mott, that's where the Rangers have the upper hand. So if our top six can match up against theirs, then that's a good sign. The Graves Marino pairing is a pairing that gives up a lot of scoring chances. I think they also have a lot of giveaways, so that may be the pairing to focus on. But the other ones, they have Siegenthaler and Hamilton. That's a really good pair. And for the Rangers, had Lindgren and Fox, we know what they can do. We have Miller and Trouba as our second pair, and then the third pair, Schneider together with a guy that I don't think Ranger fans talk about, Nicola. And I think for the Rangers, they know what to expect. They have been here before. They played in the postseason. For the Devils, the question will be, how do these young kids respond to playing in the postseason? We all know how different it is just watching it. The calls are a little loose. Not everything gets called for a penalty, and you don't have that extra second to make a decision. How do these young kids for the Devils respond to not having that extra half a second to decide where they're going to put the puck? If the Rangers can take advantage of that, then they have a good chance. But it is still a dangerous team to go up against, and the transition game is their bread and butter. So I hope the Rangers will win, but look, we have to be realistic. We're going up against a good team, and this is not going to be an easy series.
It's not going to be an easy series, and it wouldn't shock me in the slightest if this goes all the way to 7 games, right? I mean, if the Devils perform to their caliber, and hopefully the Rangers do as well, this is going to be a hard-fought series. But something that I really do want to emphasize, and my brother was saying this right away, and I do believe he's right, is the type of grit that this Ranger team is going to be on full display in this round one matchup. And it is, of course, going to be led by the captain and Jacob Trouba. We know how last year's playoffs went with Trouba. He became the most hated man in all the NHL. Every single round, he was taking out the opposing team's top players, whether they were legal or illegal hits. That's a discussion separately. However, we look at Jack Hughes, for example. We look at the stars leading this team. You know that Jacob Trouba is going to give them quite the ride. So, Steven, I want to ask you, what is your expectation, especially for Trouba and Schneider and even Lindgren? Lindgren is always hard-nosed as ever. If he's not bleeding after every other game, then there's something wrong with him, right? So I want to know just what is your raw thoughts about this D-core, the aggressiveness that they're likely going to display in this round one matchup?
Well, I think looking at a year ago, the Rangers have essentially replaced Patrick Nemeth with Nico Mikkola. That's personnel-wise the change on defense.
Yep.
But I think Fox is better this season than he was last season.
I agree with that.
And then, of course, as you mentioned, you have Lindgren, you have Schneider, you have Trouba. Schneider doesn't shy away from the contact either. I don't know if it was this year or maybe it was last season, but that hit he had on was it Boquist or Sharon Govich got a game misconduct for the instigator penalty because he was fighting Schneider. And Schneider did it a couple of weeks ago against Tampa Bay Lightning. So on the right side, you have Trouba and Schneider. On the left side, you have Lindgren and Mikkola. You have the physicality on the blue line to address certain things that may happen. The other thing that I think is going to be interesting is how do the Devils go into another gear? Because the Rangers have another gear. We know that. If we saw the Rangers the last couple of weeks, we know they have another gear. Of course, Patrick Kane's going to be a huge wild card, but the last week or two, the Rangers were not playing to win. They were playing to not get injured. So if the Rangers can kick it up a gear like they did last year, that's great. We know they can do it. My question is, can the Devils do that too, or were the Devils already playing at 100% in the regular season?
That's a fair question. That's a good one too. And when you head into playoff play, you do see some teams that really labor in because they're really scratching and clawing to get at a playoff spot, and sometimes that benefits them, especially even if they are injury riddled, because they're heading in, they're grinding every single game, but they're already playoff ready. This is a little bit of a different situation for both these teams in the sense that they've kind of been locked in for a while. The Devils have been comfortably towards the top of the standings, one of the top teams in the league. We remember when they first had that long winning streak to begin the year, and that we had. Shout out to my boy Keith Yandel, on TV saying the Devils don't even make the playoffs. And unfortunately, that is not the case because the Devils, while they did have a dip and were a 500 team for a little bit, they were able to get out of that and continue to be productive. And then this Ranger team, again, they've been pretty comfortable in their playoff spot as well for quite a bit now. So these are two teams that don't necessarily have. They weren't necessarily worn down and beaten up the way that you see other teams enter a first round, which is going to make this for a really interesting matchup and how they go toe to toe here, health wise, and just having the energy. Like I said, this is a Ranger team that is a veteran core group outside of the kid line. It really is. The kid line is pretty much the exception. Then, of course, the D core helps, and the Schneiders, the Foxes, and the Millers of the world, but. Offensively, you have Kane and you have Tarasenko. I'm really interested to see what their motor is going to be like, right? And what's the drive going to be like for them? Because these are two guys that have already won a championship respectively for the Blackhawks and the Blues. They've had multiple deep playoff runs. Kane, we all know the story there. He basically won a decade's worth of playoff runs as is. So they know what it takes. But I want to ask you, Steven, what do you think the motor is going to be like for these guys? You hope that they're going to come out and feel rejuvenized and, ready and amped up to finally be back in the playoff run after not having a deep run in a number of years, especially for Kane's sake. So let me hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah, look, Kane is only 12 months removed from putting up 92 points.
Yep.
And we saw what happened with St. Louis in 2014. St. Louis only had 7 points in 19 games. And he needed time to adjust, and maybe the same is true for Kane. Of course, Tarasenko scored on his first shift, on his first shot in his first game, and that's great and all, but not every star player has that type of quick adjustment. And maybe with Kane, it was the same thing as with St. Louis. And we saw what St. Louis did for the Rangers in 2014. While he was not a point per game player, he scored some very well-timed goals for this team, some very important goals. And I don't expect Kane to be a point per game player in the playoffs. I don't think he's the player he used to be, but if he can put up 16, 17 points in 25 games, that is enough where he contributes to you being able to make it to the final. I think Tarasenko is a couple of years younger. I think 3 years younger, and he hasn't played in the NHL as long. So he has maybe a little bit more left in the tank. But adding Kane and Tarasenko, yeah, you have to at least expect that these guys are going to be at least a 0.75 point per game player in the playoffs.
You would hope, right? And because that's our expectation right now. When you look at the overall depth, if we go side by side between these two teams, let me pull it up right now just so I have it in front of me.
And you know what? What's also a big difference that I don't think we talk about enough compared to last year's Rangers team going into the playoffs, that Panarin is healthy.
True.
Because last year he was dealing with that lower back injury,
that's right. And he labored in that series.
You could tell he was dealing with the lower back injury. Like he sustained it a couple of like a week or two before the regular season ended. He had like a heat patch on his lower back on the bench in a couple of games. Now this year he's completely healthy. The Rangers have, aside from Lindgren, but Lindgren can never play a full game without something happening to him. It just is what it is. But aside from Lindgren, there are no injuries on the team. There is nothing nagging on the team. And also the other thing is, I'm not saying Ben Harper is a great defenseman that's going to lead you to a cup, but it's a hell of a lot better to have Harper as a seventh defenseman compared to Nemeth as your sixth.
Oh, absolutely. And give Harper credit. You know, he used his size to his advantage that we've seen for the past couple of weeks, especially against Tampa. Like that's what I want to see.
And Lindgren being out for a couple of weeks at the end of the season gave Ben Harper the opportunity to play some games so he doesn't go into the postseason cold. So if we do need him, he's ready to go.
You're right. And that's huge for this team because we know injuries inevitably happen, right? And you know, we got to give a big tip of the cap. I know you were praising it earlier, but just Mikkola and his impact that he's had, especially on that bottom pair, on how fantastic a deal that ended up being for the Rangers. At first, I wasn't too sure about Mikkola and how I feel about him. He had a underwhelming year with the Blues, a guy that hasn't really figured himself out, but it looks like with this transition into the Rangers system, that he's really in a nice spot now because I've been impressed with Mikkola and what we've seen from him, especially over the past couple of weeks.
So, one quick bit about the whole Tarasenko Mikkola trade. Puckpedia.
I already know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
Puckpedia on Twitter actually mentioned it yesterday. If anyone is interested in cap-friendly stuff and that kind of info, follow Puckpedia because they go into even more depth about CBA related stuff. Anyway, Tarasenko and Mikkola have pushed both Lafreniere and Schneider out of the top 6 and top 4 in time on ice, which means that they miss out on a combined $400,000 in performance bonuses, which otherwise would have carried over to next season as a cap hit. So the Rangers basically got themselves $400,000 in cap space by acquiring Tarasenko and Mikkola this year.
Yeah. Masterful move, to say the least, by Drury. You know,
that makes the trade even better.
It's funny. It feels like every time that there is some people out there trying to criticize Drury and his decisions, he just smacks you right across the face with, nope, trust me, I know what I'm doing.
Drury had a terrible first 3 months as a general manager
and he's totally redeemed himself. And then
where he traded Buchnevich away for a shit package and then he signed Patrick Nemeth. But since then, the guy can do no wrong.
No. He's been one of the best GMs in the league. He's easily over the past
year
plus.
trading for Goudreau was a really good move as well.
Yes, it was, Goudreau's a guy that we're going to be following, this playoff as well, because this is what you get him for, right? He had his moments in last year's playoff, but this is huge, especially in this bottom six. And as let's compare and contrast, shall we, the two teams right now, the lineups. What are we liking? Like, let me ask you, Stephen, with putting bias aside, which lines do we like more? So let's start with the offense, okay? So the Devils top line: Tatar, Hischier, Mercer. I cannot say enough great things about Mercer. You have no idea how much that bothers me. But I love that kid when he was in junior. Palat, Hughes, Bratt, Timo Meyer on the third line is ridiculous. Halla, Jesper Boquist. Fourth line, Miles Wood, Michael McLeod, Nathan Bastian. So we're not going to go defense right now, just talking solely offense. Then as we get to the Rangers, Kreider, Zibanejad, Kane, Panarin, Trocheck, Tarasenko, Laffy, Hedel, Kakko, the Kittle line, and fourth line, VC, Goudreau, Mott. Who do you think has the advantage lines 1 through 4?
I think the Rangers have an advantage for lines 3 and 4.
Okay. So you think that they even have an advantage against the line 3 led by Timo Meyer for the Devils?
We've seen what the kid line can do in the playoffs last year.
Not denying that at all. Yep.
Now, the top 6 is tricky because do you compare the Zibanejad line to the Hughes line or to the Hischier line? That's the question.
That it's how they're matched up, right? So
because if it's Zibanejad versus Hischier, then I take Zibanejad's line over Tatar, Hischier, Mercer. But then I take Palat, Hughes, Brad over the Panarin, Trocheck, Tarasenko line.
Yeah.
I think Zibanejad's going to match up against Hughes. So you would have Tatar, Hischier, Mercer against Panarin, Trocheck, and Tarasenko. I pick the Rangers line out of those two.
I agree. It's tight. I mean, we cannot understate the type of year that Jack Hughes has had, for sure.
Here's the thing, right? The Devils are very much like the Carolina Hurricanes, where aside from Jack Hughes,
I see where you're going.
Let's be honest here. Jack Hughes is a star. Jack Hughes is a top 5 center in the league. And he's 22? He's going to get even better.
Which is not fun to say.
But aside from Jack Hughes, the New Jersey Devils are a team that's better on the ice than they're on paper.
You're right. Because their chemistry has been fantastic this year.
If you look at Tatar, Hischier, Mercer, you're like, that's a decent line, but they don't play decent. They play great.
Yes, it's all about gel, and we know that very well from the great lines that we've seen in the past. Brassard, Pouliot, Zook. I mean, those type of pieces. It's like they might not look flashy on paper, but by God, they are a pain in the ass to match up against.
That's probably the best chemistry I've seen of a Rangers line in my life.
100%. It sucks how short-lived it was, but that
unfortunately,
that's neither here nor there.
I don't blame Benoit Pouliot for signing for $4 million a year in Edmonton, though.
Yeah, he got a bag and was never good again. It's as simple as that.
Take it. I don't blame him one bit. But no, but that's my point, right? We know Hughes is as good on paper as he is on the ice. He's a star. But the other players, it doesn't look as sexy on paper as it does on the ice. They're a really good team, and Meyer, Halla, Boquist, Bratt, Mercer, Hischier, Tatar, Palat, they play better on the ice than you would think when you look at the lineup. And that's the danger with the Devils. That's why they finished second in the Metro. Yeah. There's a reason why they have home ice advantage. They didn't just finish second in the Metro. They finished third in the conference. I think they were fourth in the league, by the way. I'm gonna check that quickly because now I'm curious. For the Devils to end up with 100 points, and that's just great. I don't think anyone expected that to happen at all. After the season they had last year.
Yeah. I mean, the Devils were just a prime example of this youth movement coming in and everyone pretty much playing to their potential outside of there's one more prospect that we're kind of waiting on to see how much unleash he'll have, say, next season as Alexander Holtz, another fantastic goal scorer from Sweden. So,
yeah, so the Devils are third in the league this regular season. They finished third in the league.
Okay.
The Rangers finished ninth.
Yep.
So, yeah, the Devils are a better team on the ice. But as I said before, how is the difference in regular season and postseason hockey going to affect this young team that doesn't have the experience? Earlier, I mentioned that there's only 3 Rangers that haven't played in a conference final. Do you know which 3?
That haven't played in the conference final?
Yeah.
On the team currently? Yeah. Let me see if I can do this in my head.
I'm not talking about the guys that they recently called up from Hartford.
Okay. So just guys that are going to be playing.
Yeah. Guys
VC?
that have played for the Rangers in the last couple of weeks.
VC
is one. Yeah.
2 more. VC Mikola,
yeah. Because he joined the Blues after they won their 2019 Cup.
Oh, shoot. One more. Who was with...
Well, it's someone who joined the Rangers this season because obviously we were in the conference final last season.
So someone that hasn't played in the conference final before.
Yeah.
Has Halak really not gone to the conference final?
No, Halak has.
Okay, yeah. I was about to say, who am I missing? Oh, Trocheck.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you know who Harper played for in a conference final?
Sanders.
Yes. Oh wow.
Yep. Beat our Rangers. I remember.
Yep.
I remember. Yep. Can't fool me on that one.
No, unfortunately not. So yeah, the Rangers have the experience over the Devils. They definitely have that aspect over the Devils. The question is the Devils' skill and the way they play enough to overcome what the Rangers can make up for in terms of experience?
That's a good question. And
I think Patrick Kane is the wild card here. If Patrick Kane shows up, then the Rangers can win this in 5.
If Kane is the Kane that we know and love, then yeah, I'm not going to get my hopes up on 5. I will be very happy if the Rangers win this in 6. More than anything, I just
want them to win.
You can't. Do not lose this series to Lindy Ruff. I swear to God. It boils down. It starts there. It's not even as much about the talent on the ice as it is the coaching staff. Please.
I really don't want them to go back to New Jersey for Game 7.
I mean, it'll be half split of Devils fans or Rangers fans. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
I was offered tickets to Game 2 for the Series 2 in Jersey, but I fortunately wasn't able to make it happen. Tickets a little pricey right now, but the Rangers get past this. Part of me really I'm trying to think, how much cheaper would Devils playoffs tickets be than Rangers? That's a good question. I honestly don't know.
I saw a graph the other day, and this is about secondary market, right? So it's not.
So like, say you're going on StubHub, Ticketmaster, or something like that.
2023 NHL playoff first round ticket prices on the secondary market average: Rangers 1,329, Devils 668.
I know I ain't going to the Garden to see unless someone throws them free my way, which wouldn't shock me.
When the Rangers played Tampa in the conference final in 2015, there was pointed out that it was cheaper to book a hotel, go to the game there, and fly back than it would be to go to.
Steven, the Garden is highway robbery. Don't get me wrong, I love it, but unless I get offered, which, funny enough, I was actually offered to sit in a suite against the Blues when they lost in overtime. I'm glad I didn't take them up on that because of the fact that they lost. So it would have been like an annoying end to my night because that was a frustrating game. But yeah, I'm gonna look it up right now while we're live here because I'm damn curious. So let's go game 1. Okay, game 1. Dude, those aren't bad at all. I might need to hit game 2. What day is game 2? Thursday?
Yeah.
How? Why is Thursday cheapest ticket is $248, but game 1 is $222? Why is it cheaper for game 2 than it is game 1? That actually makes zero sense to me. Yeah, I might need to mess around and go to Newark on Thursday. We'll see. What's my schedule right now?
I just hope the Rangers are still in the playoffs when I fly to New York for my wedding.
Yes. And when's the date for that exactly? I know it's coming up soon.
May 20th.
May 20th. Yeah, fingers crossed. You'd hope, right? Your fingers crossed. That'd be fantastic. What a wedding weekend that would be. If you have your wedding
to New York and the Rangers are still in the playoffs, I cannot live with myself if I don't go.
Yeah, that's understandable. And what time's the game on Thursday as well?
7:30.
7:30. Mets game's at 9:45. I can still probably cover the game. Ooh, Steven. Might hold on. I'm sorry. One last thing I need to do. Okay. I just set up a buddy who's selling his. I'll see if he still has them. Okay. Now I got to ask you, Steven. We talked about the offense for this Ranger team. Now let's get into the defense and comparing and contrasting these two squads, because you have Lindy, Foxy, Miller, Trouba, Mikkola, Schneider, and of course goaltending Igor. We know the story there. But you look at this Devils defense. Again, it's not the best in the league by any stretch. However, they do have some pieces. And I have to give the Devils a little bit of credit here, because when they initially signed Dougie Hamilton, I was like, okay, Dougie went there for the bag, understood, but he really helped propel them and that offense on that blue line, and faster than I kind of was expecting, given the state of what the team was last year. But Hamilton has done wonders for them on the offensive front. Him and Siegenthaler on that top line, a nice balance. Graves, of course, the Ranger who was given away for Chris Bygras, who is Chris Bygras is the great question. I'm giving away a defenseman for nothing just because why not, I suppose. John Marino, who of course has had that playoff experience.
They could have at least gotten a pick for him, but no.
I know. John Marino, who of course has that playoff experience in recent years with the Penguins, who ended their playoff drought. Happy to say that, smoking that Penguins back tonight.
There are not many things in life that make me happier than the Penguins missing the playoffs.
Yes, their downfall is officially beginning, and I'm happy to be here for it. Kevin Ball and Damon Severson is your bomb. Damon Severson has been through the ringer with that Devils team. He has been there for quite some time now. And then goaltending, you know what you have there on that front between Vanacek and Blackwood. And it's funny, you look at the season Vanacek had, it's almost like it would have been in the best interest of the Capitals maybe not to give him away and give it back to an injury-prone Darcy Kemper. I don't know. It's almost like these are decisions that if fans can rationally make, why can't management out there? But I digress. NHL GMs stay being old heads with a lot of their decisions and just looking at, he just won the cup. Like, don't get me wrong, Darcy had a very good year, but I was like, what? Like, have we not learned by now how it almost never works out with giving bags to goaltenders? Jack Campbell's doing fantastic in Edmonton. Cue the sarcasm. Unbelievable. But I'll get off that tangent now. So when you look at the defense and the goaltending, what do you like from the Devils and what do you like from the Rangers?
Well, I mean, goaltending is unless Shesterkin has some massive issues, when maybe gets injured or rattled like last year in Game 1. I don't see how the Devils have the upper hand in goaltending. Vanacek is a decent goalie, but Shesterkin's better. Defensively, I think it's interesting that both the second pairs, like Miller Trouba and Grace Marino, have the same weakness. They're on the ice for a lot of goals against. I think Ball and Severson compared to Mikkola Schneider, I don't know, Probably a slight nudge to the Devils there. And then the first pair, if Lindgren is fully healthy, then I take Lindgren and Fox over Siegenthaler and Hamilton, but only just. I think Siegenthaler Hamilton's a really good pair.
Yeah, I mean Siegenthaler when he was dumped by the Caps, I liked that move because that year was like the best third pair defenseman in all of the NHL. So just like it was a matter of time with once he would get more opportunities moved up that he would do really well as a stay-at-home defenseman, and he has for them. But to your point, goaltending, as long as Igor stays Igor, I mean that we know what to expect there. Vanacek has had plenty of success with the Rangers. Against the Rangers, I should say.
If Igor is Igor, then Vanacek won't be close.
True. And when we look at the defensive side of things, I really that size is going to be interesting because they have size in Hamilton and Gravy and Ball as well is massive, isn't he? Like 6'6". But it's the aggression aspect. And someone commented in the chat, and I'm gonna say it, not to just shout them out and down them, but someone says I hope I see Trouba concuss Hughes in game one. I don't hope to see that. That's a terrible thing to say, but there is something to be said about the aggression that Trouba's game, that aspect that he brings, that can really be a difference maker again in this series. Like, is he going? If Trouba does what we expect him to do from what we saw last year, he's going to come out guns a-blazing, and I hope that he doesn't hurt anyone, concuss them. However, I think I would be anything but shocked if we see Trouba come out and absolutely laying out guys so hard that they are just getting worn down and fast in this series. Now, of course, what they need to make sure in Trouba's case and others is making sure that you're not doing that simple hip check, trying to lean into the side as they're entering the offensive zone, and that if they get around, then you might have yourself a 2-on-1. So he needs to be sparing on when he's going to be using these hip checks and his overall body ability that he's so good with him being as strong of defenseman as he is.
Well, what I said earlier as well, going for a check is great, but you have to make sure it lands, because if it doesn't, you are giving up a goal. Yeah. But I do want Trouba to strike some fear into them. I don't want Trouba to injure someone.
No, not at all.
I want to see some hard hits early on from Trouba, just so they look over their shoulder once in a while.
I want to see Trouba lay out a guy without him getting hurt, in the sense like just getting knocked off his ass while perfectly on ice, because we've seen that how many times from him over the past 2 years, right? That's what I want to see, and that is where I want to see how the Devils respond, basically. Because if the Devils don't respond in a manner where, okay, it's really going to be a problem for the Rangers, and the Rangers can really take advantage of this young and experienced Devils team in that aspect. Because they went through the ringer last year. They were just 2 games away from the Stanley Cup Finals. They know what the aggression is like. They know what it takes to get there. They know how clean or dirty that you need to play in certain moments. So that is really, in my opinion, is one of the multiple things that can easily be the biggest X factor in the series. How do the Devils respond to this? That is really the biggest question mark that I think we have, and it's a fair one, right? For all we know, if the Devils come out and they show that they're not going to sit back at all, that they're going to go toe-to-toe with the Rangers on this, then we're going to have something interesting happening, because it's not like the Rangers and their forward group are all these hard-nosed guys. Like, if they start to go hard after Kane, then that's going to be an issue. Tarasenko, the same applies. Breadman isn't overly strong. We're aware of that. The only guys that lead the way in aggression on the offensive front are Kreider ain't going to take no shit. We know that. Zibanejad can handle his own. Then you have Barclay Goodrow ain't going to take anything, even though he's a little bit smaller statured. And that's about it. I mean, Kakko's great really strong on the puck, but Kakko isn't known for being this overly aggressive player. And then you have Laffy in here that's always scrappy, always down to do whatever to help the team. But
I remember last year playing the Islanders, and Lafreniere actually fought someone. You remember that?
Laffy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep. And it was the Rangers were getting blown out that game too.
Yeah, and look, that fourth line, we know what Goodrow can do, but Vesey and Mott don't shy away either. But look, I was talking to someone about this yesterday, At what point does Tyler Mott realize he should just stay in New York for the rest of his career? Because he plays better in New York than he has played anywhere else.
Because it's all about the role you have on a team, right?
Yeah.
It's all about the role.
Yeah. But look, this it's gonna be a back and forth. I hope the Rangers can. Of course, I hope the Rangers win the series, but I also want them to win it in 5 games, maybe 6, because I always feel that if you want to win a cup, you have to get through the first 2 rounds without going to Game 7, because the bodies of the players just cannot take going Game 7 first and second round, and then go into a conference final appearance and then a Stanley Cup final. It's just too much. The only time that has happened was the Kings in 2014. But the large majority of teams that need 7 games in rounds 1 and 2 do not end up going to the final.
No, you're right. And again, this is another interesting aspect that we're weighing in heading into this round 1 between these two teams. But Steven, it's different for you because again, you're a Ranger fan that currently resides in Ireland, previously resided in Netherlands, previously resided in South Africa. So you don't necessarily have the understanding of the grass and the meaning behind this rivalry. And to an extent, I don't either because I reside in Pennsylvania. I don't.
No. I understand the rivalry because in my home country there are rivalries based on proximity too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think
I just don't share that same hatred towards.
You don't have like the moxie towards it. It's different for you, and that's perfectly justified. But for me, as someone who first got introduced into Ranger fandom, where I spent my entire age 11 to age 12 year of life watching every single game of that 2011-2012 team for Adam Henrique to score in overtime to lead them to the cup, just get steamrolled by the Canes because they were frauds. That's something that since then I have been enamored with this rivalry, and I'm so glad that it's back. It's not what it used to be. It's not as gritty as what it used to be because
not yet.
Not yet. The Devils are far more talented in comparison to what that team was back in 2012, like pure talent and young youth movement. It's a different day and age in hockey than what it was a decade ago, right? It isn't the line brawl in which my father was in attendance when you had everyone out there. You had Rupper when he was on the Rangers wailing on the Devils. You had what's his effing name who was nose bleeding all over the place in that matchup. Ryan something for the Devils. Devils fans, if you're watching
Ryan Carter.
Yes, exactly. You had Prost going at like that entire line brawl with Tortorella as coach. A great example of that rivalry. That is more recent than 94.
My favorite thing about that line brawl is that Stu Bickle was credited with the face-off win.
That would be your biggest fucking takeaway out of this whole thing that we're describing. But the point I'm trying to make is that this rivalry is going to really get ignited again, and that excites me. The same way that I have loved the Rangers and Flyers rivalry for when it was at its peak there in that playoff runs in the mid 2010s. Same applied, especially because I reside in Pennsylvania. Can't stand Philly fans for the life of me, so I ate that up for breakfast. So now it's hopefully the time, a new wave of these two teams facing off for years. This could be the first of many years these teams are matching up against each other, and that's exciting for me, at least as a diehard fan that appreciates rivalries because they bring a certain element to a series. Like I'm sorry, but if the Rangers are playing Carolina in round 1, don't get me wrong, that's a big series, but there isn't nearly as much emotional attachment I have to it as I do facing a rivalry like this, because it changes everything, especially if you reside in the area. If say you're in the Newark area and you go, if you're going right across and you're in the city, it's active and it's there. So I'm damn excited for this. I really am. I'm glad that a first round is a rivalry because last year was a rivalry with the Penguins, but it's a different rivalry too. They all have their own unique vibes to them that I'm sure Ranger fans and overall hockey fans can appreciate and understand when evaluating these matchups with rivalry teams and their respective divisions. But Steven, we are going to be wrapping things up soon. So I want to ask you, what is your true prediction of the series, or do you want to hold your tongue because you're a believer in jinxing things, yet you aren't? So I'd imagine that you won't be.
Dude, I mentioned the word shutout more than anyone on social media, so I don't believe in jinxes ever.
Yeah.
I don't really do predictions, but what the hell? Rangers in 6.
Rangers in 6. Okay. I don't want to jinx them. I'm going to go with Rangers in 7, and hopefully it's sooner, and hopefully it's still the series win for round 1, as we would then get into round 2. This is episode 76 of Rangers Review. So, Steven, how many New York Rangers have worn that number?
Well,
of significant, like of people that you think we would know.
You should know 2.
Johnny Brodzinski,
who's currently on the team, yes.
And the previous guy.
The other one, there have only been 2, so you should know both.
What time frame was this Ranger? Was this guy a Ranger?
While you were watching the Rangers.
Was he forward?
I cannot believe you're struggling with this one.
That's okay, because
I'm not going to give you any tips. No.
This
one's easy enough that you should get it without.
Is it really?
Yes.
You're joking.
Don't look at the chat.
I'm not looking at the chat. You got to give me a hint, though. I'm sorry.
Nope. It's easy enough. It's easy enough without a hint that you should be able to get it.
Oh, come on, Steven. You son of a gun. All right, so we had Johnny Brodzinski. Can you give me like a year that he was on the Rangers, at least a year?
No, because that makes it too easy. It's already easy enough as it is. It was a Rangers draft pick. I'll give you that.
And he's not currently on the team. Is he still in the league?
Yes.
Oh God.
He's in the playoffs.
I need hints, Steven, for the audio listeners. Give me hints.
The guy we got in return for trading him away is currently on the team. Well, we got a draft pick in return, but we picked a guy who's currently on the team with that draft pick. Oh, I cannot believe you're struggling with this. You're going to be mad at yourself for struggling with this.
No, you can't tell me yet.
Nope. I'm not going to tell you. You'll figure it out.
I'm trying
If this was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire Rangers edition, this would be like a $200 question.
You're joking. There's just no way.
You giving up?
No, I'm not giving up. All right. He's got to be a defenseman. I don't think he was a forward. I don't know why, but I was thinking like Boone Nieves before he changed his number or some shit. And I know that's not true.
Nope.
Oh, my God. So he's okay. So he's going into playoffs. Got to be East, right?
Playoffs? You're talking about playoffs? Sorry.
Oh, there we go. Skagey. Not Shay, Skagey.
I cannot believe it took you 5 freaking minutes.
Dude, that's how effective he is in his play. It blows right over my head. Had a 40-point
so player we got in return for him then.
Had a 40-point. We had a.
We traded him for a draft pick.
Foxy. Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
No.
We traded him for a draft pick. Who did we pick with that draft pick?
Well, it was a first-round pick.
Who's currently on the team?
Schneider?
Yes.
No. Ooh. Ooh, okay.
You're redeeming yourself a little bit here.
Okay.
That was fast.
That was tough. I mean, I haven't thought about that man in forever. Even when the Rangers play the Canes, like I'm just not thinking about him at all.
I love how blue shirts hockey in the chat goes. Moral lives on because I was going playoffs. We're talking about playoffs.
That's funny. Yeah, no, Shea, 40-point rookie season, loved him, was looming 2025 afterwards. Just he peaked early with the Ranger team, and thankfully the Rangers got a first-round draft pick out of him. Unbelievable trade. For as many good decisions that the Carolina Hurricanes have made in recent years, that was not one of them.
I think Shea is good enough for them. I think Shea is good enough that the trade. They gave up a later first round pick for a guy that they can insert into the lineup immediately on defense.
How is he doing this season?
Brady Skjei. 38 points in 81 games.
Okay. So second most in his career. Good for him.
He had 200 career points in this season. He is on 200 now.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, my God. He had 18 goals this year. Wow.
That is double his previous career high.
That is unbelievable. I wonder if he was a power play merchant, because I obviously wasn't following Carolina heavily this year. That is ridiculous. Brett, you know what happened? You know what happened, Steven? Once Brent Burns got in that locker room, he gave him some pointers. That's what happened. Wow.
Listen, only 4 of his goals came on the power play, so he still scored 14 at
He still scored 14.
13. He had one-handed goal.
Okay. That's 13, unbelievable.
13 strength goals.
That's crazy. He had
zero power play goals coming into the season in his career.
And Brent Burns had 18 goals this season per Brent Burns. And Gostisbehere, even though he wasn't with them all year, had 13 goals this season too. Had a nice rebound season, which led him to getting traded.
But did he have 13 goals for them? No.
What's that?
No, he didn't have 13 goals for them. He had 13 goals in total.
He had 13 goals in total, correct. Someone say you don't watch hockey. I watch hockey every week. I just don't watch the Carolina Hurricanes. Unless they're playing the Rangers. I don't watch them. I don't got time for that. I have to cover a team that plays 162 baseball games a year. Sorry. Too much going on. I don't got time to just watch basically a rival in my free time. Nor do I have interest.
162 games feel like 130 now with the pitch clock, though.
No, they don't feel like 130. There's definitely, from a viewer at home, though, there's definitely a benefit. I've noticed. Yes. As someone that covers them.
Look, for me, it was a benefit when I was in the stadium.
And that I was the opposite. I did not feel that way when I was there at the Mets home opener.
That's fine. And I'm just going to mention it because we talked about it before we went live, but I'm honestly in favor of the NHL introducing an icing clock where the team committing the icing has a certain amount of time to get set for the face-off. And if they don't, it's a delay of game penalty. Because there's way too much time wasting on icings.
That's a good point.
Way too much.
That would be interesting. I wouldn't see it happen anytime soon, but that would be an interesting thing to try to pitch.
Because there should be an advantage for the other team when you ice the puck. And if you can just stretch it as much as you want until your players can catch their breath, then what's the point of icing? So
you might be onto something here, Steven.
Icing clock. Let's get it done.
Icing clock. Let's get her done. And with that being said, we're going to get the podcast done. So thank you guys all so much for watching. This was episode 76 of Rangers Review. We will likely be back at it after the conclusion of the series. If we have any opportunities to try to come live, maybe after some games, we will certainly try to do that. We'll be seeing what happens over the next couple games, however. But thank you guys so much for watching, listening, wherever you get your podcasts here on YouTube. Make sure to drop a like and a subscription. Let us know your comments for people on replay down below on what are you looking forward to most in this round one matchup between the Rangers and Devils. How excited are you as a Rangers fan to see playoff hockey back? And for people in podcasts, thank you so much for watching on the audio form, listening rather. That's @Statboy_Steven. Make sure to check him out, of course, on Twitter. This is me, Wardy. You guys know where to find me on Twitter. And, of course, if you are, in fact, a Mets fan, on my Wardy NYR or the NYM YouTube channel. Appreciate the endless support. And Steven, as always, let's go Rangers.
Let's go Rangers.